Chat. Good evening, good evening. I've got the illustrious Mr. Adam Mason to my left. Adam, how are you doing tonight?
Good, Karl. You've dragged me on here. I want to watch the game, but I think time with you is more important.
Well, I really appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, I'm sticking to some sort of Friday, Saturday night show right now. I think this is the last hurdle, right? Next week, we've got Championship Sunday. Following week, I don't care about the Pro Bowl. And then I think the Super Bowl's played on a Sunday, right? So hopefully the Saturday show in a couple weeks doesn't have any issues there.
I just noticed the thing behind your head there. Frick the Packers. I like it. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
Frick
I'm
the Packers.
I'm very happy that the Bears ended up winning that game. I know that a lot of people wanted some draft positioning. We spent that entire game together, I think, on your channel talking about the repercussions of that. I think some things broke the Bears' way, too, where if they would have lost, they could have got better draft positioning, I think.
Yeah, they would have gone all the way up to 5 if everything went their way, but 9 and 10 was more realistic. We would have got 7th if we would have lost. It's where we would have ended up was at 7th, but...
Well, at the end of the day, I'm hoping that win means a lot more. I think for Caleb Williams, it's definitely going to be something that they can galvanize moving forward. Technically, Caleb Williams is undefeated at Lambeau Field, right? So we get to brag about that until...
that win alone, beating the Packers finally, there's more moral victory to that than moving. Even though the teams that jumped ahead of us, the Saints... And I can't even think of the draft order in my head right now, but all three of them right before us want defensive ends and defensive tackles as well. So it does kind of hurt us in that regard. But that moral victory, saw the way Caleb handled that in the press conference and the way Packers fans have shut up and they can't look down on us and treat us the way they have before. It was a good thing. Good thing. We needed to beat the Packers.
Well, let's drive that point home. We watched the Packers they didn't get obliterated, but they played terrible in Philadelphia. I think the Eagles were they played less than their standards as well. I feel like I saw a lot of Packers fans and the team maybe will think that they're closer than they should be just because of all the injuries and such in that game. Do you think that the Packers are going to look to try and make any wholesale changes or to actually try and get better? Or you think they're just going to be in my opinion, they're going to be stuck in purgatory? I just don't know how you feel about that.
Well, they're not in purgatory yet. Their salary cap isn't bad. They have a ton of cap space. They're not in a horrible position, but I don't see them making wholesale moves. I see them building through the draft like they have been. And to go back to what you just said, no, the Eagles played an absolutely piss-poor game. They played terrible, but the Packers are who we thought they were, but the Eagles did just enough not to let them off the hook. The Packers played actually very average for Packers, but the Eagles played like dog crap. But what will they do this year? You hear Packers fans talking nonstop about trading for Max Crosby because of his ties to Wisconsin and the Packers, and you hear them wanting all these big, gigantic moves. I just don't see the Packers being the type to go out and do that when they know they signed a huge contract with a quarterback that they shouldn't overspend. They should continue to build through the draft. The Packers have been very smart with Goot as their GM, and they'll probably continue to be.
Yeah. As much as Packers fans would like to say that they own that team, it's that general manager pulling the strings, obviously. I know what you're looking at. I just saw Scary Terry, Ohio State's finest. This is a good game, ladies and gentlemen. So if you guys are in the chat and you're listening to our voices right now, we do really, really appreciate it. I see a bunch of good people in the chat. Let me say hello real quick before we really get rocking and rolling. Chicago Sports Podcast, how's it going, sir? Chad Speaker, Brian Gilmore, Greg B., Mr. Mayhem, quite a few in here. I'm really surprised. Thank you, guys. Prometheus. I see a Miguel Goncalves. That's definitely from Adam's channel. Hello to you, sir. This Bearski guy, I don't know who that is. I'm pretty sure, Adam, that Bearski Film is an AI chatbot. I just haven't come to grips with that just yet. I see Antmass, some old guy named Foster Covers. Guys, welcome in. Holy smoke, CSP with the $2 super chat. God bless you, sir. You're the inspiration. I really appreciate that. Andy Anderson, a lot of people. Bob P. I told you, Adam, your fans are going to pour in here and they're going to take what you say as gospel because you're the man with the plan. You do the deep dive analysis, so I'm getting excited for this. So before we talk about maybe how to fix these Chicago Bears, Adam, there's one rumor, and by rumor I mean a reported fact at this point by Adam Schefter. He said that the Chicago Bears kicked the good old tires on Mr. Mike Tomlin. How do you feel about that?
Okay, so I mentioned this in my video earlier today. There's one thing that drives me nuts, and I think you know this by now because I vented to you a few times. Our Adam Schefter did nothing wrong. The way he does things, absolutely wonderful. They will take things with this fan base, and they'll take something to report, and they'll turn it into the biggest, most glorious. I mean, for example, who did they just report on switching agents today? They did that. Man, it's been a long
Ben
day.
Johnson.
They report, yeah, Ben Johnson switched agents, and all of a sudden there's this.
A Chicago-based agent, may I add? I'm sorry.
Okay, but it happened before the season this last year. And Mike Tomlin, all they did, they put a phone call in, said, "Hey, would you be interested in letting us interview Mike Tomlin with the possibility of a trade?" And then all these outlets say, "Blockbuster trade incoming for the Bears. The Bears are trying to pull off this blockbuster trade." And it's just like, oh my gosh, kicking the tires was the right way to say that. You nailed it, Karl.
Well,
I think it's.
I think that the most level-headed approach to this would be that the Chicago Bears are doing their due diligence, just as how they're casting this very wide net on their head coaching search, right? The Chicago Bears hopefully inquiring about a coach who has a very high salary, if not tied for the highest in the NFL, will show you that no expenses will be spared in acquiring the next head coach of the Chicago Bears. So if that's the case, that gives me optimism and makes me happy. I wish they would have been able to trade for a Mike Tomlin. If you look at the immediate comments and reactions to Adam Schefter's Twitter post, it's kind of like oh darn, we almost got freed of the devil. They think that Tomlin is this terrible head coach because once Ben Roethlisberger retired, magically he has no playoff success. Well, duh, you need a quarterback to succeed. So I think that he would be a great head coach for the Chicago Bears, even if they had to trade a lot for him. I would be all in favor for it at the end of the day. I've pounded the table for, that hashtag McVay to Chicago. I love the idea of trading for someone that good. It's just not realistic.
If we're gonna trade for a head coach, though, I have nothing against Mike Tomlin. I mean, he's been fine. But he hasn't been Bill Belichick. And if you're gonna give me a defensive head coach, it better be someone like, I'm not saying Bill Belichick now, but Bill Belichick 20 years ago that's going to win me 7 championships. If not, just like Caleb said on his own, or with the St. Brown brothers, he wants an offensive mind. If that's what Caleb wants, go get Caleb an offensive mind. He said it. Let's get it done. I mean, go get your McVay, go get your Shanahan. That's fine. Do the trade for them. Or let's get Ben Johnson. Let's get Joe Brady. Let's get someone else that's offensive minded, because that's where I am at this point with the head coach search.
Well, let's take that point and run. I just pulled this off the screen, but Mr. Chad Spieger had also given yourself, I believe that means that it's a $5 super chat to your channel, Adam. So, Chad, thank you very, very, very much. We do greatly appreciate that.
Cheers.
So, in the idea of running away with these coaches, you just mentioned you said Joe Brady?
Yeah, he got interviewed today or yesterday by the Bears tele-interview.
But Joe Brady is a guy who you've got on your radar, because I know that there's a lot of people who like Joe Brady, a lot of people who like Todd Monken, but in my opinion, I've always been of the thought that these coordinators who already have established superstar quarterbacks, maybe it's a bit smoke and mirrors with how good they actually are. Whereas with Ben Johnson, they have a very talented offensive line, but I don't think very much of Jared Goff. I don't think he's that good of a coach. I love Sean McVay, and Sean McVay needed to move off from Jared Goff to be able to win a Super Bowl, which is exactly what happened. So I'm much more in the camp at this point. I don't want to say Ben Johnson or bust, but it feels like Ben Johnson has the absolute highest ceiling of anyone that the Bears could realistically acquire, and that's the man that I'd go after. But let's just say, hopefully not the case, because if Ben Johnson goes to the formerly Oakland Raiders, I'm going to have a big problem on my channel. I'm going to have a lot of hate. But let's say the Bears cannot get Ben Johnson. Who's the guy, Adam, that you'd say we have to go out and get, and who's the guy that you'd want the Bears to get at that point?
I don't have a forced opinion. I don't. I think a lot's going to happen. I've sat in interviews, not NFL interviews, but I've sat in many interviews in my day, interviewing people or being interviewed for jobs. And I'll tell you, there's a lot that accomplishes in those actual interviews. They're going to have the resume of these guys, but if you're going strictly off of what they have accomplished as a head coach, you've only got certain guys, and they didn't do it with their other jobs. But if you're never going to recycle and start the new guy, how are you ever going to find the next superstar? I just want what I just said. I want Caleb to get what he wants and to get paired up with an offensive mind And as you watch this game right now and you watch the play calling, it's not Jared Goff. I don't believe it's Jared Goff at all.
Adam, don't say it.
In
It
fact,
is Jared Goff. It is Jared Goff. He just threw a pick six.
Threw an interception right as I said that.
He threw a pick six.
It's the play calling and the schemes. Like, you watch this game, and the way the Lions were playing well was all the scheming and designing. Jahmyr Gibbs on that second drive, they had a punt on their first drive, but the second drive, I mean, it's very creative, and I want to see that in Chicago. And then the two mistakes, Jared Goff got laid out with his interception.
Jared Goff just got erased. Earlier. Man, that was awesome.
So I am very in on the camp of, I don't know if you saw that graph that showed the play calling efficiency. Did you see that graph?
The easy button, I can throw that up on the screen for everyone watching. I know exactly
easy
what
button
you're
was
talking
one,
about.
but then efficiency was the other one. Like, how efficient the play calling is was the other axis of it. And at that far end is all those candidates. It's Ben Johnson, it's Joe Brady, it's Todd Monken, and I'm all in on the camp of bringing those guys that have found offensive success as the play callers. The Packers OC that we interviewed today, Adam, however you pronounce his last name, was not the play caller. Matt LaFleur is still calling the plays, even though he has the OC title. So I don't want to even entertain the whole Packers bullcrap thing. I want those play callers that have found success.
I have to agree with you, man. I think one thing you said, too, with what Caleb Williams want, it'd be asinine if you're the Bears, anyone in management, call it Ryan Poles, whoever the head coach may be, general manager, anything above, Kevin Warren, ownership. If you just ask Caleb Williams what he wants and give him what he wants because of that, that would be asinine. But I always have felt strongly that Caleb Williams is such a talented quarterback that it's worth taking his opinion into your thought process. So I agree with you.
Of course.
Caleb Williams, if he's saying he wants someone who's offensive minded so that he can grow with, and that's kind of what his, I can't think of the word. Just the way that his, I'm stuck on this word. I can't think of it. Just what he wants, right? I think that that's definitely something you have to take into consideration.
It shouldn't dictate as an ownership level. It shouldn't dictate your decisions at all. But when you know that this is a potential opportunity to pair up a rookie on his second year with someone that he could grow with, and you could have continuity in Chicago finally, that should weigh part of the decision as ownership and as management saying, okay, we haven't had this before. If it does go well, if we finally do well with this, we can pair up an offensive mind that we're not going to lose. Like, for example, if you hire a defensive head coach and we get a great OC, that OC is going to get hired away, and then Caleb loses his OC that does really well with him. And that's what Caleb was saying on the St. Brown podcast. I want an offensive head coach that can grow with me. He even said the words, I think he said 19 at first, and then he backed it down 15, 16, whatever years. I mean, he was talking career. And when you hear that, it makes fans feel excited. But as an ownership, it should make you say, you know what? There's validity to what it's saying. We can't make our decisions based off what our player is saying, but there's validity there. We haven't done it this way before. That's something for us to look into, and we need to at least strongly consider this.
Yeah, and if Caleb Williams is going to thrive with having, I don't want to say an emotional connection, but that rapport with someone that he can trust, right? Instead of maybe potentially a revolving door of new offensive coordinators every other year. I totally get what you're saying, and I think we're on we're in lockstep there, on the exact same page. I can't find that graphic. It's neither here nor there at that point, but we know what we're talking about. I just wanted to reference it directly because you were right. Ben Johnson, he was essentially like far and away. So this is going to be a weird twist of the tale here as we're currently talking, chat. We've got the Redskins beating the Lions 24-14. So Jared Goff with the interception. It goes to show that the Lions truly are a run-first team. I'm just not able... Wait a second. Oh, my God. That's Teddy Bridgewater, Adam. We've got,
Goff is out.
Crazy breaking news going on. Goff out. Because he got plastered. And if you guys aren't aware... Teddy Two Gloves was a quarterback who was with the Lions before, but he actually essentially came out of retirement, I thought, to back up Jared Goff. Because it was, I believe the player's name is Hendon Hooker, is the Lions' backup.
Hendon Hooker's their draftee that they drafted last year, or 2 years ago.
My favorite part about the Lions was when I remember not having a conversation, but seeing people, maybe they're just talking, you know what, but people saying that Hendon Hooker was a better quarterback or would be a better quarterback than Justin Fields. So Lions fans were high on him, but as things stand,
I don't understand what's happening right here because I personally was very high on Hendon Hooker coming out as well in the draft. I thought he was the future for the Lions when they drafted him. I thought he would eventually take over for Jared Goff. That's interesting move going on right here.
Yeah, this is definitely some fun stuff. So we'll have to get to that. You guys will be able to see the entire second half in its entirety. Um, let's move on to, I guess, the topic at hand, Adam. As far as the Chicago Bears and moves that you'd want to see from them in the offseason. I've always said that with your mock off seasons that it starts with the head coach and more importantly the defensive coordinator, whoever's running the defense, I guess, whether that is the head coach or not. I hope not. But what are some moves that you think that the Bears absolutely have to make as far as player personnel, retaining a certain player or letting a certain player walk? I believe you're of the camp that Ryan Bates is someone who absolutely needs to be cut, right?
Well, what I think is right and what Ryan Poles will. I don't think Ryan Poles. There's two key people I've shown in my mocks that I think need to go. Ryan Bates is one of them. We saved $4 million, zero dead cap. So we save $4 million. That can go to another more deserving player. This game is exciting.
Yeah, I'm starting to almost feel bad at this point. Like, we are seeing some crazy stuff going on. You've got Jameson Williams holding the football up at the 15-yard line. He must be off of Viagra or something. This is absolutely insane stuff right now, guys.
You're killing me, Karl. All right, so Nate Davis, he's already gone. Ryan Bates should go. I don't think Poles will let him go. There's two reasons. Number one, he wanted so bad to get him, and now he got him, and he has 2 years with him. I think Ryan Poles is the type that hangs on too long, and he will hang on to Ryan Bates too long. And with that, the free agent class, a lot of fans like to throw out, well, we can just fix all these things in free agency in the draft. This free agent class for guard is not good. Interior offensive line, period, is not good. Like, there's not a lot available, and those that are most likely going to get scooped up before they hit free agency on March 13th.
Yeah, let me just interject real quick. We're never going to see Trey Smith hit free agency. I know that we've talked about this on Twitter. That would be the slam dunk, obvious choice. Yeah. But these guys, now I'll go flip side in a second, but Trey Smith almost certainly is never going to hit free agency. They're just going to use their black magic like they did with Chris Jones. He'll never see it. But in the same breath, there is a flip side of the coin to where guys like the people that got released from Buffalo because of what they had to do, right? I believe the center's name is Mitch Morse. These guys that you just pencil in, they're never going to leave their team. There could be some surprises there. I just hope that the Chicago Bears are going to be able to identify, play the 3D chess that, us fans maybe aren't able to, as well as you'd hope that the Bears front office would be able to.
Yeah, and you'll see those happen before March 13th because those contracts that are built in, there's 3 different windows. Prior to March 13th, there's a different cap savings amount. Between March 13th and March 15th, there's another one. And then after March 13th, before June 1st, there's the June 1st, that leads into the next year of cap hit. They can push some of that off to next year. So there will be some that happen before March 13th. I have no clue at this point who would decide to exercise. That's up to the teams. But I don't see us getting rid of Ryan Bates because of how thin this free agency market is. And on that same breath, we're so eager to let Tevin Jenkins go. Explain this one to me, Karl. We're so eager to let Tevin Jenkins go, but then fans want to sign Ryan Kelly because he has whatever it was, 4 Pro Bowls or 2 or somewhere in between there.
Quickly refresh me. Ryan Kelly is your center of the Colts, right?
Center of the Colts, yeah. He's less available than Tevin Jenkins over the last couple of years, but we want to sign him, but we want to get rid of Tevin Jenkins, who's top 5 at his position, and Tevin Jenkins is young and freaking amazing when he is playing. The injuries happen. That's part of football.
Drive that nail home for me, Adam. So you think that this year, I don't care about the past, I care about this 2024 past season, Tevin Jenkins was flashing top 5 potential to you?
That's where he stands. Like, when he plays exceptionally well. Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like Tevin Jenkins has essentially been a letdown this year. I think that in a contract year, I expected a lot more from Tevin Jenkins. And honestly, I think that the Chicago Bears and Ryan Poles thought a lot more of Tevin Jenkins. So
injury-wise or pressure-wise? I think the only thing people have a problem with is how much he's not on the field.
I have an issue with Tevin Jenkins' play. I don't think that Tevin Jenkins was, flashing any sort of all-pro potential in his limited availability this year. I've heard your argument for this, and I've referenced it a couple of times. You pointed out that right now the Chicago Bears, going into the 2025 season, their starting 2 guards and their center at both the first string and second string are unsigned. Just completely not on the team right now, right? Their contracts have expired, essentially.
The only players we have for the interior, you want at least. I mean, you got to have 6 stable ones on the interior offensive line between guards, center, backups, all those. We have one right now, and that's Ryan Bates. That's the only of the 6 positions we have filled. We got to fill 5 more. Now, if you want to go in with Bill Murray, we have him as an earnings restricted free agent, which means we can lock him in. He has no choice. We can lock him in as a league minimum contract, which this next year will go up from $985,000 to $1,030,000. So 1,030,000, $1,030,000. So we can lock him in at the league minimum, and I think that's a smart thing to do. But I don't want to rely on Bill Murray as a backup.
That'd be
at this
asinine.
point. I'd rather have him be like a 5th string guard that you can pull in when things get really tough. Like 3rd string down the depth chart, but 5th overall guard.
Yeah, like you're maybe if the Bears were to take 10 offensive linemen, right, out of all the positions, you'd have him fill
Bill
in
Murray's
at whatever guard for whichever backup got hurt. I hear you. I hope for more with Bill Murray, but you can't go into the season with him being any. You can't depend on Bill Murray. Is what I'm trying to say. But I would much sooner sign Coleman Shelton for continuity's sake with your quarterback than I would with Tevin Jenkins. I really like the idea of holding on to Ryan Bates, but not letting him have anything. I don't think that he should be a starter penciled in any sense, but let him compete. I know you could save money, yada yada yada. At the end of the day, you gave up draft capital for him, so just squeeze the lemon on that. And if he doesn't play for you, whatever. But with Tevin Jenkins, I just feel so certain that he's going to command so much money because he has flashed the potential. And there's going to be a team. I can't think of a good example, but there's going to be a team that feels like they need a good guard to transform their offensive line, take it from good to great. And I feel like someone's going to give Tevin Jenkins somewhere between $15 and $20 million a year. I just think it's a guarantee at this point, and I don't think that the Bears are in a position where they can, essentially risk it again with him. Because if he plays the way that he did this year, and also has to deal with injuries while making a lot more money, because right now he was on his rookie contract that expired. I just think it'd be a waste. But as far as free agents, I don't know if there's a better option. And I know for a fact you can't draft 3 starters on the interior offensive line and hope for the best there.
Well, for those people talking about the sacks that Caleb took and giving no credence to it being multiple different reasons those sacks were taken, the fact is he took the most sacks in the league. If you don't want to pay Tevin Jenkins $15 to $20 million a year, you're going to have even more sacks this year. Tevin Jenkins is that damned if you do, damned if you don't thing. Like, he is the best option out there for the Bears at guard. There's no other option. I mean, you can try to hope. This is Bears mentality and thinking, though. Sorry if I offend anybody. We take players that do good in a spurt and we act like they should be all pro. Did it with Tyson Bagent, prime example. We think that he should be an all pro because he did good in a spurt. Now, Bill Murray, in the limited time that he came in and played in backup, he had exceptional stats, off the board stats. And the same thing with the other backup everyone's talking about, Will Fries with Indianapolis. He's a free agent this year. He had his breakout year, but he only played, I think it was 5 games, 6 games, and he was injured for the rest of the season. They act like we can take these players that had 3 bad years and then had a breakout year, and they're going to be the best thing because they came to Chicago. Well, the reality is they're probably going to play a little down because they came to Chicago because we don't have the continuity and we don't have it built in. The other one, Matt Pryor. Now, I'm not trying to offend anybody here with Matt Pryor. I've hyped Matt Pryor up. He's played very well for a backup that played as a starter. His stats technically are around average for a starter. But if you look at Matt Pryor, when Darnell Wright was injured and he slid over to right tackle, it was terrible. Terrible. If you look at Matt Pryor when he had to move over to left guard, it was terrible. Matt Pryor benefited from being next to Darnell Wright. Matt Pryor played better because he played next to Darnell Wright. So we gotta have the guys that are starters and studs, and we need to draft a couple too. But the other thing you said with Coleman Shelton, Caleb took something like 1,060 snaps this year. Coleman Shelton took 1,059. He took 1 less than Caleb. He's the only Iron Man we had on that line, and that's been his whole career. It's asinine to continue to, 3 sacks given up for the entire year, and he played every snap with Caleb. So, yeah, I'm pretty opinionated when it comes to certain players,
and that's fine. That's why you're here. I want you to be able to take your professional bias aside on the screen now. I know we're streaming to your audience too, but I want it to be more of I'm okay with your gut feeling on certain things right now. That's, I think, what we're trying to go for. So we're talking about maybe Ben Johnson being the next head coach of the Chicago Bears. Something that just popped into my mind would be, what do you think any free agents that the Lions have? They would probably have a higher likelihood, especially on that offense, to want to gravitate back to the system that they're familiar with and go with Ben Johnson. So if we're talking free agents, and I don't know if you've delved too far deep into this, I know who Kevin Zeitler is. He's going to be a free agent. He was a free agent that the Lions acquired this year to replace whoever they lost in 2023.
From the Ravens.
Kevin Zeitler's fine. I don't know if you want to overpay for him as opposed to Tevin Jenkins at that point. I don't know of Zeitler having any injury history either this year. Other offensive linemen that the Lions currently have, which are pending free agents, they'll be free agents in 2025. List includes Dan Skipper. I'm seeing Natane Muti, and I thought there was another one, but I guess it's not that many. I don't know if you've delved into this, but anyone on the Lions that you think we could poach if we were to acquire a Ben Johnson?
It depends on how far the Lions go, but if the Commanders just scored another touchdown. If the Lions win the Super Bowl, teams don't want to just leave to just go with the coach. And the only one that I have even proposed mocking and stealing is Kevin Zeitler, because he is an Iron Man. He's not injured very often, and he's been very consistent through his career. And I think you do get a little bit more of a discount with him because he is hitting those twilight years. He's hitting older years. So I think Kevin Zeitler is worth it at right guard. I would still keep Tevin Jenkins at left guard, but there's so many good guards / interior offensive linemen between 30 and 100 in this draft. Like, there's literally a couple dozen that are worth maybe a handful of those being starters day one, but like a couple dozen that could be starters by mid-season with a little experience. There's a really good interior offensive line draft class right now. This is going to be really good.
So in that sense, to the draft, if it was to play out perfectly for the Bears in that, I guess just from your philosophy standpoint, would you feel comfortable starting 2 rookies on the Chicago Bears offensive line next year?
Not next to Coleman Shelton. Coleman Shelton does fine.
Doesn't matter where. Your dream scenario, just in a nutshell. 2 rookies starting for the Chicago Bears. Is that something that you feel comfortable or even
not
want?
On the interior offensive line? Not on the interior of the offensive line. I would not want to do that. A lineman is such a position where you continue to develop through your rookie contract and you get better and better. And you see this with a lot of Bears fans this on Twitter. Now, I'm not talking about everyone, but they act like if we draft someone like Will Campbell or Kelvin Banks, that they will be day one starters and they will be Joe Alt quality. Now, go back to the last couple drafts and look at those offensive tackles and the guards who are drafted. Look how many actually play Pro Bowl caliber on year one. Like, it takes time for them to develop in the league. I would much rather run with Tevin Jenkins, Braxton Jones, Coleman Shelton to start the year, and then draft one of the top centers behind him, whether it's Jared Wilson or Jake Majors, or there's a couple of them Seth McLaughlin, a couple of them that I like right there, and have them not have to start day one, but with Coleman there, and then draft a right guard and have one of the Tyler Booker. A lot of people don't think he'll fall to 39. He's going to fall right in that sweet spot right there. And if he doesn't, there's a couple really good right guards right there. Jonah, I don't know how to say his last name. Sonavaya or whatever from Arizona. He's a tackle, but everyone projects him to be a guard in the NFL. He's projected right in that same spot. There's going to be a really good
for Jonah specifically. Spot. No, yeah. the range is where he's going to be drafted
around 39, around our second pick. Our second pick should be yeah.
I saw a lot of people chatting about how he was essentially a guaranteed day one pick, first rounder.
Well, there's 45 people that you're hearing will be a day one pick. I mean,
yeah.
Everyone and their dog says this guy's going to be a first round pick. There's so many of them, but that's right where the strength of this draft falls into. The top 12 to 15 are really, really, really strong. And then, it's a decent second half of the first round. So it's good that we're not back there. And that's why I don't think we will trade back. I like the idea of trading back to get another second rounder. But then in between 30-ish, 35 through 100, it's just a ton of depth, just deep draft. Unlike last year where you were reaching for, Karan Amagaji at 72 or Austin Booker in that same range. And these guys, it wasn't as deep. You're going to find guys at the end of the second round or third round, second day into the third round get into those comp picks that people are going to be like, dude, they just got a steal at number 99. They just got a steal at number 80. Like, there's some really good, solid players in the second, third round of this draft.
Yeah, I've always felt that the best teams in the NFL have the best core and build the strongest roster, not just for the now, but for the future. They build that team on day 2. Your second round, your third round picks, those are so very important. You can swing for the fences in day 1, obviously, lots of quarterbacks, skill players, whatever the case is. But if you can hit in day 2, rather, rounds 2 and 3, that's when you're going to have a really strong competitive roster. Boy, I don't know. Outside of that, is there anything with the Chicago Bears as far as roster composition that you think that they need to address? I know that we share the same sentiment on their. Well, let's capstone the offensive line. You want Braxton Jones. You are not of the camp that Braxton Jones needs to be traded, cut, and replaced, correct?
Hold on with that. I made it very clear how I feel about Braxton Jones. Braxton Jones is not the clear weakness, but what we just accomplished was we said those 6 interior offensive linemen. You got 6 of them. You got 3 starters and 3 backups. Right now we have 1 signed, and he's probably the worst one you can have signed. That's Ryan Bates. So we need a lot of help on that interior. I do not believe Braxton Jones will be the left tackle of the Bears in 2026 unless he has an absolutely amazing year this year. But right now he's playing as a very average to slightly above average tackle in the league. Is he trash? No. Is he also Pro Bowler? No. Like, he's right in that range where he's doing just good enough to play out his rookie contract. But if you want an extension, I would say he has to play top 10 tackle this year. So to fit what you're saying, I think that it would be stupid not to run it back with him this year with the amount of needs that we have, with how deep of needs we have, because our interior is so depleted. And it's not just that, it's the defensive line as well. Like, our run blocking or our run defense is terrible. We cannot tackle to save our lives. We allow so many runs up the middle. We allow so much to go like right through that line. It's abysmal.
I can't remember how big this. I was going to say, I can't remember how big the sample size is because I can't remember when Andrew Billings got hurt. But do you remember when you were doing your analysis, do you remember the Bears' run defense really tanking once Andrew Billings got hurt? Did it get a lot worse?
He's one of the worst defensive tackles in the league for tackling. Andrew Billings would not be a backup on half the teams in the league. That's how bad our defensive line is. Andrew Billings, people in our fan base think he's so good because he got a little bit of pressure this year. Andrew Billings sucks. He almost didn't make it with the Raiders. Like, he almost got cut by the Raiders. He would be a backup on our team because we're so depleted. Even after the draft and free agency, he would be a backup. On half the teams in this league, Andrew Billings would not be on their roster.
That's a bold statement from you, Mr. Adam. I don't know. I feel like I watched a very obvious decline in the Chicago Bears run defense once Andrew Billings got injured.
Do you know how many
whether that was
missed
morale
tackles Andrew Billings had? Like, for the limited sample size he had just as many missed tackles as he had tackles. Now, that's don't somebody go look that up and say, "Oh, wow, Adam Light." It's not quite, but it's right. It's bad. Like, how many missed tackles he had, and then he couldn't shed guys off. Like, you think our offensive linemen can't handle defenders? Like, he would make every offensive lineman look really good against him when the run came. Now, he was getting some pressure. Like, he would put his nose down and would get a little more pressure this year. And Bob Peckle, I understand half of you won't agree with me because we only had a small sample size of Andrew Billings this year. But if you go break down the tape from Andrew Billings this year, he was manhandled by offensive linemen, and he couldn't shed off of people to get tackles. And when he tried to tackle, he sucked at tackling.
So I can play devil's advocate and push your buttons regarding your fabled PFF stats, right? What if an Andrew Billings gets a missed tackle according to PFF, but that missed tackle kind of took him, the running back, whatever, out of the gap and into the arms of another defender who then made the tackle? Is that something where there's like an issue with referencing those types of stats?
You just told me that he missed the tackle, though. Like, we've had this discussion. There's so much you can do from actually.
But what constitutes to a missed tackle? Did he get juked in the phone booth and just totally, out of his shoes, or did he just fail to complete the tackle?
You fail to complete the tackle. When you have your hands on someone and you don't complete the tackle, that's a missed tackle.
Adam, we have a breaking development. Mikey Sainristil, who was a national champion, Adam, just got an interception. This is fantastic. I'll be the first to say I'm not a fan of the Redskins. I do not like Mr. Slenderman, Jaden Daniels, but this is an
Look at
enjoyable
Goff.
watch right now. I
Goff is
love
so
Mikey
tough.
Sanders still.
I don't understand what was going on with Bears Twitter and Bears social media today and the last couple of days with them wanting the Lions to win. I will never understand how anybody from the Bears fan base can want Lions, Packers, or Vikings to win games ever.
Because
I don't
it's
want the Lions to
slander on
win.
Caleb Williams. Just because Jaden Daniels is good, that's all it takes for the public eye to think that Caleb is bad. And it's really frustrating to deal with, Adam. Especially when
It's
they
not
talk about
factual.
this. When they talk about this on social media, Adam, I can't stand the nails. It's such bottom feeder mentality, man.
Oh man.
So, if you guys are checking in at halftime, I just saw the viewers spike just a little bit. We really, really appreciate it. If you guys are unaware, we're streaming on 3 channels currently. We're simulcasting to my channel, the Lions My Podcast, also on the Bears Country Podcast, as well as on Adam's channel. So if you guys are in the chat, feel free to say hello. A lot of people in here. It's getting a little bit crazy, so we appreciate each and every one of you stopping by in the chat. Again, greatly appreciated. I agree. Capstone on the offensive line. Tevin Jenkins, Joe Alt, apples to oranges. But I'm sorry, not Tevin Jenkins. Braxton Jones. Braxton Jones, Joe Alt, apples to oranges. But you have to squeeze the lemon on that contract and get what you can out of Braxton Jones and look to replace him in the future. The one thing that scares me, I guess, is that ankle injury. I believe he had surgery on that. If he's not fully 100%, what are the Bears going to start with? They're going to start with Karan. They have to, right?
Depends on who we pick up at free agency in the draft. Like we have nothing. We have 4 players total on the offensive line right now where it stands right now. We got to wait for, March 13th and April 20,
Love
whatever
this
it is,
comment.
5th or 4th. I think it's 24th. In freaking Green Bay, man.
Is this one of the guys that was
Polish a turd, it's
abusing
still a
me?
turd, exactly.
Yeah, is this one of the guys that was abusing me on my channel? He says, polish a turd, it's still a turd.
Silver Schmidt rating.
Yeah, we appreciate your input in the chat there, Mr. Silver Smoke. Crooked Kamish. How's it going to you, sir? Outside of the offensive line, Adam, what are some moves that you think the Bears absolutely must do? I'd love to hear your input regarding Keenan Allen and that situation, what you think the Bears should do there.
Well, okay, let's hit wide receivers, but that's not my order. It's offensive, defensive line, period. Out of the 9 draft picks we have, it's got to be 8, I guess, technically right now. 8, unless Ian Cunningham probably not going to get hired. There's rumors he could still take one other position available, but that's just rumors. So
And
out of
he's
the 8
not
draft
linked
picks
to
we
any of
have,
the openings, right? Which is really disheartening. He was only linked to the Titans.
the Titans interviewed him before, so that's why they liked him again, but they ended up going with the Kansas City assistant general manager.
What a bold move.
I know, so hard to figure out.
I was right, by the way. This guy is just the total abuser.
Raiders. Hey, Raiders,
Well,
man.
I want to talk about this in a bit.
No shot of getting Ben Johnson at Raidersville.
We'll leave that for the
end. If you're a Raiders fan, and you truly
I guess
believe
we're going
that,
to
like, sorry, I don't know anybody here in Vegas that talks about it. Like, it's fluff. Like, no Raiders fan that has any reality believes that Ben Johnson is going to the Raiders. They're going to hire someone like Arthur Smith that's cheap because they're already paying $30 million a year to other head coaches. They're paying 3 other head coaches right now. They're not going to pay Ben Johnson. Like, they're not going to do it. It's not going to happen.
So outside of that, though, I'm hearing these Raiders fans talk about how the Raiders have a better roster than the Chicago Bears. And once the Raiders acquire a quarterback, they'll be right in playoff contention, just like what the Broncos did. And then I'm hearing the most outlandish stuff about how Jacoby Myers as a wide receiver 2 is a better wide receiver 1 than DJ Moore. Like, I'm just hearing the most stupid stuff. Like, I don't think that the Raiders roster is that good. And the fact of the matter is, if you're Ben Johnson, you're going to walk into a division where the head coaches are Big Andy Reid, who just hit 300 career wins, Sean Payton, and Jim Harbaugh, with your quarterbacks being Mahomes, Bo Nix to a lesser extent, and the great Justin Herbert. Like, you want to deal with that?
Well, you told me to take my Bears rose-colored goggles off. You said to do that at a couple different points.
Go for it.
I'm going to do that for a comparison against the Raiders. The Raiders' defensive line is literally 5,000 times better than the Bears' defensive line.
So
The Raiders'
educate me.
offensive line,
Outside of
where it
all,
stands right now.
I was going to say
ahead.
defensive line. Outside of the great Max Crosby, who's literally an All-Pro, and the guy that I love from Miami, Christian Wilkinson, I believe.
Wilkins.
What's going on in that defensive line outside of that?
Well, both of their defensive ends are better than our second defensive end. And, well, one of them's a free agent, I believe. I'd have to look up. I don't pay that close of attention to the Raiders. I just know who they. But both their defensive end twos. Oh, I should pull up their team. Both their defensive end twos.
Please do. Take your time pulling up what you need to.
Our defensive end room is it's bad. Karl, I don't think a lot of Bears fans have accepted the reality of how bad our run defense is, or the pressure. We don't generate pressure, and if you want to target down the big problems of the defense, it's not Tyreek Stevenson having a terrible sophomore slump. He did have a bad sophomore slump. It's not the linebackers playing down. You can only do so much when you get no pressure, and we get no pressure. But just like Mr. Mayhem is saying, and just like you said a minute ago, the one thing that's most attractive to an offensive-minded head coach like Ben Johnson is a quarterback. They don't have quarterback figured out in Raidersville. AOC is not a solution. So,
and how do you improve that? The Raiders are drafting what position again?
6th or 7th. They're gonna have to go for a free agent this year. The big rumor living here that you hear about is they would be the ones that would take a shot on Justin Fields. And I actually love the fit for Justin Fields. Give him a bridge quarterback, or give him a bridge contract, a 3-year, $35 to $40 million contract. Let him prove it. If he doesn't after year one, you draft another quarterback to develop under him. Or if they sucked so bad that they pick in the top 5, next year's quarterback class is amazing. Let the Raiders select a quarterback then. But that's kind of the rumor you hear here, is that they really want to go after Justin Fields as their bridge quarterback and have a shot with him.
Now, let me do some pontificating. I'll play the role of Mr. Shorty. So, I was hearing something up. Go ahead.
Hold on. The scrolls there in the comments. Mr. Scrolls, you're about to be on my bad list, my friend. I live in Vegas, and Vegas does an awesome job of separating the strip from the family parts and being a wholesome place to raise my 3 kids. And we're going to have a problem if people start talking smack on Vegas, because I actually love Vegas. So, let's go ahead.
That's amazing. Kind of
hate
knocked
the Raiders.
Me off what I was
live
going.
here. I hate the Raiders.
That's good.
But.
Boy, oh boy. Okay, so pontificating, okay? I heard a certain something about a certain Deion Sanders might want to end up being the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys.
Isn't that crazy?
I can guarantee you.
The one that would.
I can guarantee you that if Deion Sanders is a head coach in the NFL, his quarterback will be his son, Shedeur. Shedeur could definitely go about the John Elway, I'm not playing for you, so just don't draft me, I'm playing with my dad. I can see that happening, okay? If Dak Prescott...
There's not enough teams that would say, no, we're not passing on Shedeur. It's not that Shedeur is like amazing, incredible, and he should drop all the way to 12 or wherever the Cowboys are. It's just that this is such a quarterback needy class that there are teams that will draft him in the top 5, and he'll get picked in the top 5. They're going to have to trade up. So the Cowboys not only would have to get rid of Dak Prescott, but they would have to trade up and use draft capital to go up and get.
And that's what I'm trying to say. So if you're a glass half full, formerly Oakland Raider fan, you could potentially trade for Dak Prescott in that scenario. And we talked about how the cap hits are different at certain dates. It would be the funkiest trade in the world to have Dak Prescott be traded like 3 months prior to when it actually goes official, because there's got to be a huge dead cap for them if they trade before. I don't know the nuance of it perfectly, but that's the only saving grace that I could see for a Raiders fan. Other than that, I really don't know if you can even get better than it's Aiden O'Connell. Kevin O'Connell is the coach the Bears should trade for from the Vikings, but I don't know, man. I just don't get the Raiders fans saying that it's a foregone conclusion. And we even have people like Adam Schefter coming out on the Pat McAfee show saying, I don't know why this is being reported like this. Ben Johnson to Chicago is alive and well, is kind of my standpoint on that.
Yeah, I try to give as unbiased or as unrumory content as far as the Bears head coach goes, like where we're interviewing people and what. I don't see any other option. Ben Johnson wants the Bears. The Bears want Ben Johnson. If I'm a betting man, I would literally put everything on it being Ben Johnson for the Bears. I don't think he wants to go anywhere else. I mean, you've got no state tax in Nevada. That's about the only perk there. The defense is the opportunity for the Raiders. The offense, yeah, you got Myers. What's the Jacoby? You got Jacoby Myers, and then the tight end, Freak Brock Bowers, and then even Myers, the tight end they had last year that didn't pan out. He's still a good prospect to work with, but
if you want to get insane that Brock Bowers is the best receiving option between the Raiders and the Bears, I can't say you're wrong. Brock Bowers had a fantastic year. He's literally all pro as a rookie, right?
Yeah, but I don't think he's the best option. I mean, it was just.
I don't think that. I'm saying you can't say that that's like downright wrong.
You asked earlier if we should keep Keenan Allen, and I'm mixed on that one. I won't be upset whatever way the Bears go with that one because Caleb clearly has an affinity for him and an affection for him. On the St. Brown podcast, he said he's the best player that he's ever played with. So I'm not hurt, but there was a clear drop off with Cole Kmet this year by having so many targets, and you can't neglect Odunze. Odunze is absolutely special. I have people text me right now, multiple people. Do you wish you would have drafted Jaden Daniels? Like, there's certain people that I think the Bears got right in the first round. I made multiple videos about how this year would be the year there would be multiple really good quarterbacks. That it would be, and I specifically said, it's funny that this is coming to fruition because I specifically said, I'm all in on Caleb, Jaden Daniels, and Bo Nix. I'm not sold on Drake May, JJ McCarthy, or Michael Penix, but they all deserve to be drafted in the first round. That's pretty much exactly how it's gone so far. But too many people get caught up in thinking there's only one good quarterback that can come out of a draft class. And that's just not reality. There can be multiple. To go back to, I'm going everywhere. Sorry, Karl. But to go back to the whole Keenan Allen thing, I think it kind of took away from Odunze in the same draft. Odunze put things up this year. They were so special. The only thing Odunze was off on was his connection with Caleb. The two of them, where he would sit in a flat instead of continuing to run his route. That happened way too often where the two of them just weren't in sync with how they would interact with each other.
And that's just rookie growing pains.
Exactly. And when you have rookie on rookie, if it was a vet with a rookie or a rookie with a vet, the other way around, they probably would have sorted that out faster. But if they get together after Caleb's cyst is all healed and his hand is out of that cast, they get together and they work on that. Every metric of Rome is better than even Brian Thomas. I even hyped up Brian Thomas Jr., but his high point, his contested catch, his drop balls, Rome is going to be super special. So I don't know. I want to see Cole get more balls. I want to see Rome get more balls. DJ is the man. We're not trading DJ. So I'm back and forth on whether we re-sign Keenan. If it's a value contract.
Yeah, I was going to say maybe just like to Cliff Victoria's point, and what I'll say is let's say it's at the opportunity cost of a good free agent signing. Would you rather have Keenan Allen at the rate that he's at currently, or even like a price increase, or would you at that point rather just move on from Keenan Allen?
Oh, the rate he's at now, no, not even a price increase from where he's at now.
So you only want Keenan Allen back on a more team-friendly contract.
Yeah, $15 million or less is what I would want Keenan Allen at. And
Isn't
I think
he
that's
making
not
25 this year, or just about?
Well, with the way they restructured it over and over, it's over 20 million, and they say he's worth about 20 million. So I don't know. I don't think he'll re-sign here, but I don't want the Bears to re-sign for that godly amount. That $60 million cap doesn't go as far as people think. Once you factor in the new, the rookie class is going to take about 11-12 million of that.
I was going to ask you, only 11 million for your 8 draft picks?
Well, you're thinking of last year. Yeah, because once you get past the second round, it's very cheap. You're thinking last year.
But we've got multiple seconds. Oh, yeah. First overall, 9th overall. I got you. Yeah, that's going to make
That's what cost us so much last year. Last year was only 13.5 million, though, for our rookie class. This year, it'll be around
5
11.
picks.
Well, and none of them really matter. I mean, after the third round, it's $1 million. That's all it is for each one of the guys. Like,
yeah, that's chump change for guys like you and me, Adam. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. like to see $1 million.
I think we're in lockstep, though. I mean, I want Roma Odunze to shine because not that a lot of people I'm seeing are slandering that pick, Roma Odunze himself, but no one understands my opinion that it's it takes time to develop as a wide receiver in the NFL. Just because you've got guys like Lad McConkey and Brian Thomas Jr. who are good in their own God-given abilities, they were the number one pass receiving option on their respective teams, and Roma Odunze was treated as the third option. So
Yeah,
Roma
exactly.
Odunze as a rookie, he had great production, and I just want that to kind of not increase but exponentiate. I think that as a ninth overall pick, it's a really good investment, and he's a good player. I don't know. Tell me if I'm wrong.
I
I think that Roma Odunze would be the first wide receiver drafted in this draft class, outside of how you view Travis Hunter. Am
maybe
I am
not
I dead
Luther
wrong in
Burden.
saying that?
Maybe not Luther Burden. Luther Burden's going to be really special.
I
But
agree. I think
if you're
Luther
wanting
Burden's going to be special, but I don't know if he'd be a better draft pick as things stand. Looking at the
think
draft
of it
class with Roma
think of it
Odunze
like
there.
this: Luther Burden would be very comparable to Malik Neighbors, and people had the same debate last year: Neighbors or Roma Odunze, and most would probably pick Neighbors over Odunze before the draft. So it would probably be that same conversation with Luther Burden and Roma Odunze. The thing is, Roma Odunze that I highlighted before last draft, his contested catch ability is going to make him really, really special when it comes to long term for the Bears. Like what he did this year, no other rookie has done except I can't remember who it was. 8 years ago, someone did it with the contested catch, being top contested catch rate in the league. Like he was number 3 this year in the entire league, not out of rookies, but his 75% this year is the highest in a decade, other than one guy. And that's going to translate to him getting a lot of those. I mean, if we're running a system like Matt LaFleur's where you throw 50-50 balls up half the time, like that's what Jordan Love does. Throw off his back foot, throw it down the field 25, 30, 40 yards and just have a prayer that your receiver will win it over the other guy. Put Roma Odunze in that situation, and he's going to come away with like literally 1,500, 2,000 yards a season.
Breaking news: Green Bay Packers trade for Roma Odunze. I'm going to slander you on that one, Adam. No, I think we're totally in lockstep there. Don't want to take too much more time talking the team. It's all hypothetical, but I agree with you. The defensive line is also something that the Bears need to invest in. As far as like a trade-up scenario, Adam, do you think that the Bears are... Let's say the Bears could trade up from... Are they at 10? They're drafting 10th overall.
Yeah.
Would you feel comfortable trading from 10 to like 6, 7
No.
for like the apple of your eye defensive lineman?
No. There is no
question.
scenario with where our no, I'm getting to it. There's no scenario with where our team stands where I feel comfortable trading up because of the top of this draft. How many good players are there for us? At 10, we can still say we don't get Mason Graham or Abdul Carter, which is the dream. Those two guys would be the dream for the Bears. Probably not going to happen. The odds of that happening are like, I don't know, very, very low. I want to give an example, but I won't. So they're not there. You've still got really high quality guys there at 10 that would fall to us. Whether you're on the boat of Nick Skeleton, which is a huge defensive end, would play very DeMarcus Walker style, but with a little more burst off the line, get a little bit more pressure. If you're wanting a Nick Skeleton type of guy, which I'm not super high on, I have him closer down to the 20s than the teens. But then there's James Pierce, who is an absolute wrecker, and he and Abdul Carter and Princely Uman-Mielen, those three guys are all very similar in the fact that they can play with, play a 3-4, but they can all play knuckles in the grass as well. But they're so disciplined with their hand technique, and they're so disciplined at being able to set the edge too. They don't let the runners get by them, and that's the big weakness for the Bears this year. They don't collapse the pressure outside in, and that's the big problem for the Bears. We don't collapse and pressure in to be able to force the quarterback to get away or to throw the ball away. We have so many issues getting that pressure. And all three of those guys might not be the biggest guys, but Abdul Carter, James Pierce, Princely Uman-Mielen, all of them can get super pressure, but also can set the edge to stop the run. And all of them would fix that problem on the defensive line, 100%.
Yeah, from a very rough point of view, someone who hasn't delved into film or anything like that, any advanced statistics, I did watch some Penn State versus I think they lost to Notre Dame. That edge rusher they've got, Abdul Carter. I think I talked to you before that game about how I wanted him to show up when it matters. They didn't win the game, but that kid can play, man. He put it on the film. He really showed up when it matters, and I think he was even dealing with some sort of injury. So if there's a scenario where Abdul Carter can fall to the Bears, which will not happen, that would be just a dream scenario in my opinion.
He's Micah Parsons 2.0. He had a misdemeanor last year where he basically ripped the tow truck driver out of the truck because the tow truck driver was towing his car away. So he got a misdemeanor, but it got expunged because it's his first violation. He took a behavior management class, sat through the courses, did whatever he needed to do. But if
he sounds like a perfect fit for the Raiders. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, I'm
no,
gonna look.
Everything you hear about Abdul Carter is he's a stand-up guy, but he's just very passionate. Like there isn't the character concerns with Jalen Carter. That
I was gonna say I'm gonna look like I'm gonna get egg on my face because I'm on the record of calling Jalen Carter the murderer. So I love to poke fun at that. But
he wasn't he?
I don't want to say anything that will slander and slight your fans of your channel, Adam. I don't want to come off negative in that sense, but
I think I've said that. There's no way in the Bears situation that I would have taken that gamble with Jalen Carter, with everything that was happening and how he was clearly involved, and he lied to the police, and then he left the scene. It's just too much risk, and maybe he'll turn his life around, and people make stupid decisions, and maybe he'll be a stand-up guy from here to forever. But then you hear rumors about stuff that happens in the middle of the season this last year. And his nature, it was the right move. Darnell Wright was the right move.
Yes, we're in lockstep there as well. Totally agree with you. And again, I've always felt that Jalen Carter would not be the current Jalen Carter if he wasn't surrounded by his Georgia Bulldog teammates on the Eagles in Philadelphia. I think that that's something that not a lot of people are talking about, and it really is going to help as far as his development, all of that good stuff. Cliff Victoria has a comment and a question for you, Mr. Adam. We don't have to waste our time on Mason Graham. I know that I've fully educated you on the greatness of Mason Graham. Anyone else as far as a 3-tech that the Bears could be looking for at the top of the draft?
Yeah, Walter Nolan is a top 10 pick that nobody talks about at that range. I said the same thing about their teammates, Princely Umanmielen, but Walter Nolan, his it's the same thing. He could pin his ears back. I think he had something like a pressure every, 10 plays or something. And for the interior defensive line, that's really, really good. He had 6 sacks on the year, 7 last year, but his tackle rate as well. He had 0 missed tackles last year, and he had 3% this year, which is astronomically low for a 3-tech, because sometimes all their job is just pin their nose back or ears back and just get the pressure. So he's one of those guys that's just really special. I put him on the same level as Jalen Carter. Now, not a lot of people agree with that, but he's 6'3", 305 pounds, and the dude, when you watch him play, he can shed guys off. He's a beast. He's a bull. He can rip guys away from the play, and then he can still shed off and get the tackle. His behind the line of scrimmage tackling is off the charts, and then he gets pressures and sacks as well. He would absolutely disrupt things as well. Your mock draft databases will have him somewhere in the 15 to 25 range, but he could go top 10. If the Bears picked him at number 10, I wouldn't be upset one bit whatsoever.
So it sounds like you're saying and suggesting that Walter Nolan is better than the great Kenneth Grant.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, sorry, I know you love Michigan.
We're gonna have to fight over that one, Adam. I know. I said I wanted to keep this to an hour. So, are you interested in trying to do a top 10 mock draft as far as predicting what the top 10 will look like?
Yeah, let's rock it. Don't stress too much about the hour. I just told you I want to see the end of this game. We're in the early third quarter. We're good. Rock and roll, man.
No, at this point, Adam, it's more that I don't want to miss this game anymore because holy smokes, this is a good game.
Hey, so I will give you credit with Kenneth Grant, though. The one thing Kenneth Grant does that I really like, he doesn't get nearly as much pressure as the Walter. And Kenneth Grant, is he not more of a nose tackle to you? I mean, he should.
Yeah. So if we're talking about these two great interior offensive linemen for Michigan, Mason Graham was the guy who was getting double teamed every single play, and he's still making it happen. But Kenneth Grant is kind of the bigger, more nose tackle type of guy, in my opinion.
I do have a Kenneth Grant as a first rounder. I don't think he's anywhere in the Bears range because he's near but I do like when I watch the film on Kenneth Grant, even on those double teams, he will fight through the double teams to get the tackles. He's a really good tackler. So the biggest weakness on the Bears, obviously getting pressure, but we have sucked at run defense. He would help the run defense. If we traded back and picked up Kenneth Grant, he would do a good job of helping solidify our run defense.
You found a way to answer my question before I even got to ask you it, so I'll simply say thank you. So for the mock draft, you said that you're a fan of the mock draft database?
Yeah, I just think they do a better. PFF, I think, does really good on their grading system, but they're organizing guys into where they should fall in the draft is like the worst out of everybody.
We're going to have to figure that out.
Mock draft database, I think, does a better job of lining up where potential players should go roughly. But if you go to them for their trading scale, if you ever want to make a mock trade, it'll be absolutely atrocious. Like, it'll be terrible.
I've got you. Again, I think that this would be a fun little quick exercise to end the show. Let's start a draft here with just the top 10. So I have a strong feeling that there's going to be a lot of movement as far as trades, whatnot, whatever the case is. But as things stand in the current draft order, who do you think is the number one player that's going to be drafted? I'll go out on a limb and say that's going to be a quarterback.
Cam Ward. I think Cam Ward is worth taking. But here's the thing. This is interesting to me. What if the Titans want to build some value for the future and they sign someone like Aaron Rodgers? What if they do that? And then they say,
that just sounds like a catastrophe waiting to happen.
I think the Titans will take Cam Ward, but it just goes through my head. What if they want to go with a vet? Because there are some decent vets in this free agency class for quarterback. I mean, you got Sam Darnold. No, what's his Vikings
free agent quarterbacks?
Well, you got,
I mean, Russell Wilson and Justin Fields are both going to have their contracts go up, right?
Yes, they're both free agents. Then you got Aaron Rodgers. Man, I hate when I have brain farts.
Are you thinking AFC,
Sam
NFC?
Darnold. I was right with Sam Darnold. I don't know.
Yeah, Sam Darnold's a free agent. I thought you were looking for someone else.
But with the Vikings, they're most likely going to roll with J.J. McCarthy and Daniel Jones. I don't see them bringing back Sam Darnold, so he's probably going to hit the free agency
Sam
market.
Darnold's poor performance in these last two games that he played could allow them to retain him at a much cheaper rate than anyone would have ever dreamed.
But
I'm talking like $25 million a year.
You signed you drafted J.J. McCarthy high for a reason, and they brought Daniel Jones in for a reason too. They really did.
But you have no idea. I have no idea what's going on with J.J. McCarthy's knee. My gut tells me he's going to be just fine, but maybe that knee is not where the Vikings want it to be, and maybe you bring in a Sam Darnold and have them compete. And the worst thing that happens is you're paying $25 million for a premier backup quarterback while your starting quarterback is on a rookie scale.
That's why they picked up Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones is there to be able to help bridge that gap. That's why he's there.
I don't know. He's not
Kirk
under
Cousins
contract.
is the other free agent.
Daniel Jones is under contract. Yeah, Daniel Jones is under contract through next year, and he's cheap. Dirt cheap.
I thought Daniel Jones was signed to the active roster on whatever weird deal that they used to bring him in just for the rest of the season.
No, I think they got him for next year. I could be wrong.
I've been wrong more than once in my life, but
I hear you.
yeah,
Well, let's
Cousins
stick to
is
the
gonna
draft.
be gone.
I think that your sentiment of the Titans potentially trading out of pick 101 because Cam Ward, in my opinion, is undeserving of being that 101 pick, like a Caleb Williams. I could definitely see that happening. So, in this exercise, the Cleveland Browns are picking second. What would you think that the Cleveland Browns are going to end up doing?
Yeah, here's the hard part, man. You could see reaches on quarterbacks this year that aren't normal because teams need. But I think the Browns will sign a free agent, and I think they'll solidify some other needs. And if I'm the Browns, I think they're really, really, really stupid if they don't go with Abdul Carter or Mason Graham. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, it warmed my heart seeing a mock draft where Mason Graham went 101, and it's very realistic in my opinion. He's that good of a player. So at 102, that's a really good pick. You mentioned the quarterback reaches. Let me ask you if there would be a more fun quarterback room in the NFL, that being the Achilles brothers, Deshaun Watson and Aaron Rodgers. What do you think if the Browns went that route?
I don't think Aaron Rodgers would go to the Browns. I
don't
think
either,
his
but how
pride
funny would it be?
Would not allow him to.
Tell me
got
about it.
Got a decent head coach there with Stefanski, though.
He's a great head coach. Yeah, I would love for the Bears to have traded for him.
maybe that's enough to make Aaron Rodgers appeal to want to go there, but I don't see Aaron Rodgers going there. I can see someone like Kirk Cousins going there.
Yes.
I can see Cousins going to the Browns.
Actually, he's one of the Achilles bros as well, so my point still stands.
Yeah, that would be 3 of them in the same room. That would be funny.
Yeah, if Mr. Kirk Cousins needs to get some massages on that Achilles, I know that Deshaun Watson knows all the good spots, so he'd be in prime spot. For this mock draft, Adam, do you have any issues with Mason Graham going 102 to the Browns?
I think they would take an edge over. Well, it depends on who they re-sign. Yeah, put Mason Graham there too. I think it's a great spot.
I love it.
I think the Browns would absolutely take Mason Graham and be happy with that.
Yeah. Okay. So our Giants, not our Giants, but the Giants at 3rd overall. Many would say that Travis Hunter is the best player in the draft. Do you think that Travis Hunter gets past the Big Apple on the Giants?
I think Shadur Sanders is the lock for the Giants. I don't think
lock.
I don't think there's any other direction they would go. In fact, you could see Cleveland go to a quarterback as well. It could be interesting to see somebody fall completely in this draft not fall up, but come up in the draft that should not be there, because there's a couple teams at the top of this draft that absolutely need a quarterback. And, the Browns need one, and they just restructured Deshaun Watson's contract to make it possible to do that. The Giants need one. The Titans, obviously, if they weren't sitting 1-1, I don't think the Titans would go quarterback in this draft with how weak the quarterback
I agree with you.
I think they would have stuck with Will Levis for one more year and drafted next year. But I think out of necessity being 1-1, that's why I think if any team would trade out of one, the Titans could do that and sign someone like Aaron Rodgers and try to build for the future, get another first rounder next year and try to actually rebuild that team the right way. This is the same discussion a couple years ago for the Bears. And I would, if I'm them, I would do that. Like, I would trade with the Raiders and let the Raiders trade up and get the number 1 overall pick and drop down 6 spots or 5 spots to pick up that extra draft capital and get another second rounder this year and a stacked second round class, another first rounder next year. I would do that, but I don't think the Titans will. The Titans will tighten.
So the moral of the story here is you can't see the Giants pass against Shadur Sanders.
No, they've got to pick a quarterback. And, man, free agency is going to clear a lot of these things up, Karl, especially with the quarterback position.
Yes.
There's going to be a lot of things answered with the
these mock drafts are really going to be firing on all cylinders after the free agency period has started. Something that a lot of the social media peeps I've seen say, they would love that being the Giants. The Giants would love to pick up a Jackson Dart in the 2nd round.
Yeah,
so I don't know if that's a fit I see
that you couple of these Jalen Milroe, Jackson Dart.
Let me be the first to tell you, Jalen Milroe is not him. Jalen Milroe is not going to.
No, that's why I'm
do
saying
much in the NFL.
Second round, third. A team like the Raiders would be great for Jalen Milroe. That would actually do well.
Why does he also have a felony charge? Okay, I'll stop making jokes. I'm sorry.
They don't have a running back, so he could be a dual threat for them to be able to be a running back.
That's why you said Justin Fields. Oh, we're having way too much fun tonight.
No, he is a good. They could use a dual threat quarterback in Las Vegas. That would do wonders for them with their lack of running.
Justin Fields to Las Vegas confirmed, baby.
I don't see the Patriots going any other direction here, but Travis Hunter. They need both sides of the ball. They need the wide receiver. They need the cornerback.
Did you listen to Mike Vrabel's introductory press conference?
No, I didn't.
Mike Vrabel really is a lot of what us Bears fans want the Bears to do, and build inside out. He said it starts with the trenches. I don't think that. I don't know.
But there's no one in this class worth taking at number 4 for the trenches. There's absolutely no one in this draft. There is not a lineman in this draft worth taking in the top 15.
Now, that's your bias aside, but what this exercise I'm trying to do is predicting what we think it would be. Because you think that these tackles suck.
No, that's not a bias thing, though. That's me analyzing this class. There isn't an offensive lineman in this class worth taking that high. You're looking at. Can you imagine if someone took Peter Skoronski at number 4 overall a couple years ago? Can you imagine that? That's what this is. Will Campbell, Kelvin Banks. That's what
the problem. If you need a tackle and you want the best tackle available, it has to be done in the top 10. If you look at the All-Pro list,
there's not one.
But
so you're saying
J.C. Latham? Didn't J.C. Latham get picked that high? Is J.C.
Not-
Latham, has he flashed any sort of Pro Bowl talent? But
Wasn't
he
he
was
outside of the top 10?
no, he was taken. I thought J.C. Latham was taken before Rome Odunze. Like you draft tackles in the top 10, whether you think that it's worthy or not. That's just the nature of the beast at the tackle position.
But that's
The All-Pro
Titans.
position
See,
is comprised of top 10 picks.
Stupid decisions by stupid organizations. 7th overall in the 2024 draft, J.C. Latham.
You don't do that crap.
Well,
So-
J.C. Latham also had the flexibility, all that good stuff, the physical characteristics. I really genuinely think that tackles go in the top 10 whether they deserve to or not. And I'm
See, and
almost
J.C.
positive
Latham
Better
Go ahead.
than either of these guys. Either of these guys. Will Campbell,
J.C.
Kelvin
Latham
Banks, not
is
better.
better than them, probably. But
not a better prospect either than I mean, J.C. Latham better prospect than either of these two guys.
These two guys are pushed to the top of this draft because there's no good tackle option.
right, I know, but just because of that alone, they're probably going to go top 10. So I just don't know where the slide starts. Maybe 4 is too high. For my money, if we're picking what player we think is going to be drafted 4th overall by the New England Patriots, I can't believe that Travis Hunter's even fallen this far, but it feels like the Patriots would prioritize the trenches and they would draft Abdul Carter. That's where I think that they would go in this exercise.
I don't. I think they would take Travis Hunter. Dual threat.
I just think he's too valuable to them
To be able to pass up on, and then they can start filling the trenches in the 2nd, 3rd round. That's just my personal
Okay.
opinion.
I like I said, I can't believe that Travis Hunter would fall out of the top 3. So if Travis Hunter to the Patriots at 4 is what you think, I'm all on board for that. Now pick 5, we're looking at the Jacksonville Jaguars.
This is a no-brainer. And they even put the suggestion on him. Will Johnson, to me, is an absolute superstar in the making. Day
Let me
one,
give you the little heart.
and they need cornerback. Like Will Johnson will be a Jaguar. That's not even a doubt. The only one
Yeah,
that could steal him
I'm
is the
certain of
Patriots.
that.
If the Patriots say we don't like Travis Hunter's dual threat, that's what they would do.
And if by chance you guys are not subscribed to Adam Mason and aren't watching his videos, Adam, you made a fantastic video of Will Johnson falling to the Bears at, I believe, 10. I don't know if you had to trade up in that scenario, but if
No,
Will
it's
Johnson was to fall to the Bears at 10th overall, you bet your fucking bottom dollar that they're drafting yet another cornerback because that is how good Will Johnson is. So I'm glad that we agree on that. So now we're looking
This is
at
just where it was best
Go ahead.
player available is what I was doing with that one. I was just trying to show best player available, and if someone like Will Johnson
Right.
fell there,
Will Johnson
You don't
is a
pass the
top
ball.
5 pick. So if Will Johnson is available at 10, it doesn't matter if you have Jalen Johnson, Tyreek Stevenson, Kyler Gordon. Add Will Johnson to that room. The no-fly zone, the Legion of Boom, whatever you want to call it. We'd have to come up for a name on the spot for that legendary Bears defense. Secondary, if they were to add Will Johnson to it. Now we're looking at Raiders at 6.
yeah, either Tetiori McMillan or Luther Burden. I would rather go with Burden, but they need an X
Yeah.
receiver, and McMillan is that X receiver. So the consensus is everybody kind of believes that McMillan will go to the Raiders. But if I'm the Raiders, it's not dire straits like the Bears had to have an X receiver. The Bears had to have an X receiver. Rome was the clear and obvious choice for us. I like Luther Burden more, but I think they would pick Tetoria McMillan because he's 6'5" and he's got leaping ability and he doesn't ever drop the ball. I think they would go with McMillan.
I don't know, man. I feel like sometimes with draft analysis, things get overanalyzed. I think that even if he had a down year, I think that Luther Burden is the better wide receiver than Mr. McDonald, whatever his silly last name is. Luther Burden, I think, is going to be the better wide receiver. I'm going to put some bias into this, and I'm going to say the Vegas go wide receiver, but they draft Luther Burden. I think that
That's
he's
fine.
going to be,
I'm okay with them taking Luther Burden. I think he's the best wide receiver in the class.
and I'm in lockstep with you. I totally agree on that.
In fact,
now we're
last
looking-
year in my pre-draft videos, I said Luther Burden could be the first overall pick off the board last year before he had the down year, which I'm not, you take so much into that consideration.
Yeah,
Yeah, the Jets right here at 7. let's say the Browns didn't take Mason Graham because they took Abdul Carter. Either one that's here, Abdul Carter or Mason Graham, the Jets would scoop up in a heartbeat. Like the Jets will take either Abdul Carter or Mason Graham. There's no way either one of them get past 7 in this draft.
Yeah,
No
you're
chance
absolutely
whatsoever.
right. Those guys are just way too good. I could see Abdul Carter and Mason Graham being top 5 picks. Now we're looking at Carolina at 8. Something tells me they want a wide
Carolina's-
receiver as well.
Carolina's a tricky one. They need trench help as well.
and probably more defensive trench help. But they also, if Tatoria McMillan, so in this example, if the Raiders didn't take Tatoria McMillan, I would think the Panthers would take McMillan because of his size. That 6'5" size that can jump and get contested catches and run routes. Really, for a 6'5" guy, it's hard to run routes cleanly. And McMillan does that. I just think he needs to be fine polished a little bit more, but they're not going to pass up on that in Carolina. I mean, what else are you going to do with your 5'6" quarterback? He's got to have someone tall that he can see down the field.
The comparisons that I see with McMillan are the kid from USC that got drafted by the Falcons. I can't think of his name. Man, brain fart, just like you earlier. But what I'm trying to say is that McMillan doesn't play like that. He doesn't play to his 6'5" frame. He almost plays smaller than that. And that does, I don't want to say that worries me, but that's why I feel like McMillan is just not going to end up being as good as a Luther Burden. But as far as this exercise, I agree. McMillan or any wide receiver, either of those two wide receivers to Carolina here at 8th, I think that they would be okay with that, especially because the great Dave Canales has kind of salvaged Bryce Young, and we're starting to see, Adam, I wouldn't be surprised if from this point on, Bryce Young is viewed as the better quarterback than CJ Stroud. I think that you started to see that as the season started to progress.
Yeah, it's way too early to gauge a quarterback on year 1 or 2.
You need 3 full years.
It's going to take that third year. I said it last year with CJ Stroud, and people called me a bum. They called me an idiot because I said, look at CJ Stroud and Jordan Love's stats. They're very similar with their accuracy. They both throw 50-50 balls down the field and rely on their great receivers to be able to catch the ball and win an array. They are very similar in the aspect that they don't rely on their God-given ability. They don't use their vision of the field. I think CJ Stroud is extremely more intelligent. When you listen to CJ Stroud speak, he understands concepts. He understands dissecting the defense. I just don't think he's as accurate as he needs to be a star. But those things can come along, and it's going to be interesting to see a couple years from now even when you look at the number 4 pick in that draft too with
the human freak, what's his
Anthony Richardson with the Colts. He barely had any starting experience in high school, in college, and then you get him here to the NFL, and he's been injured so much. You don't even know what he's going to be next year. Like anybody who thinks they know what Anthony Richardson's going to be in year 3, no one has a freaking clue because we haven't seen enough from him. You need those 3 years to evaluate someone.
You do, but with Richardson, unfortunately, I really wouldn't be surprised if you're evaluating him as a running back compared to a quarterback, because some of the metrics I've seen and just the game, like the eye test with Anthony Richardson, right now, he is a terrible passer of the football. Terrible. So
until downfield. Have you seen his downfield stats and his downfield throw? Like, they will be doing terrible all game, and then they'll throw a 60-yard, and it will be a freaking bolt.
It reminds me of Love in that sense. Yeah, you've got Alec Pierce just picking up these crazy moon balls, things like that. So I hear what you're saying, but
Alec Pierce will do nothing all game, and then he'll have a 90-yard touchdown at the end because they just connect. If they could do that the whole game, Anthony Richardson would be a freaking phenom, man.
Yeah. Well, to the point of the exercise here, Carolina, McMillan, lock.
We're in agreement. Yep.
There we go. All right. Well, now here's where I really can't see the Saints passing on one of these tackles.
Again, they've got to have defensive end help. They've got to have an edge bad. The Saints are desperate for an edge. There's no way they pass up on one of the edges.
So as far as the edges, you're looking at either Mikael Williams or James Pierce, or are we looking at your other guy, Princely?
They've got them out of order. I think they would probably go with Scourton.
I don't like their order right here.
They're probably going to go with Scourton because of his size. He would fit very well with the Saints in their system with his 280-pound size, with his burst off the line. I think they would take Scourton right here.
Interesting. Okay. I'm really not going to refute that. I mean, I don't know, man. I can almost promise you this, Adam. Whether it's via trade or something happens or there's some really interesting combine statistics, measurements, whatever you want to say, I think that before the Bears pick at 10, maybe both, but definitely one of Will Campbell or Calvin Banks will most likely be a pick before the Bears inside the top 10. I'm almost certain of it.
I don't believe it. I don't. Not with
in any other draft that might be. This is such a stacked defensive. Last year, how many offensive players went off the board straight before a defensive player hit?
The first player that was
15.
drafted was it
15 at
Latu?
the Colts.
Yeah,
Latu, number 15 to the Colts.
That's
That
not
was the
going to happen
first
this year.
defensive-
Yeah,
but that's
it's
the
night and
opposite.
day.
This year it's defensive. And if it wasn't for quarterback needy teams, you probably wouldn't see that at the top. Those quarterbacks aren't top 10 quality quarterbacks this year, but they're going to be drafted because of needy teams.
Correct.
This would be a completely defensive top of this draft for a long time if it wasn't for teams that just had to have a quarterback. So I don't know. You could see Kelvin Banks go to the Saints. I don't see them passing on an edge in the first round with how bad they need that help on that defensive line.
Well, the bottom feeders of Chicago Bears land would definitely say that the Bears need to draft one of these tackles. Then we've talked about it ad nauseum. I don't think that the Bears go either of these players.
I don't know if it's bottom feeder. It's just so hard to know what Ryan Poles is going to do because, I mean, he could do something wild like draft one of these guys and put them in at guard because he's shown that he's willing to overdraft what you typically think someone will go. With Darnell Wright, most people had him as a 15 to 20th overall pick. And I'm not just talking like me or your big boards. Like most experts said, Darnell Wright was a 15 to 20 range guy. So if I'm saying the same thing about Will Campbell and Kelvin Banks, and I'm saying they're in that 15 to 20 range, and Ryan Poles has proven that he'll take it exactly 10, a guy that should land in 15, 20, maybe he will take Kelvin Banks or Will Campbell and put them at guard this year and have them have an easier transition to the NFL with guard. I mean, he very well could. We'll see what I would, but if I'm in these shoes right here and you've got Walter Nolan and James Pierce and Princely Uman Mielen, and those are your options here at 10, even go back up to Jalen Walker, linebacker. Where'd you go? Right there. Jalen Walker. He could easily be a knuckles in the grass defensive end for the Bears.
Really?
So, oh yeah, he could convert. He's one of those that could convert very easily. So if I'm the Bears, there's
A lot
no
of
way
talent
I'm
on this Georgia defense. Holy smokes.
Yeah, I'm
Michael Williams, Malachi Starks, Walker.
I like Michael Williams. He's more in that 15 to 25 range for me too. And Ashton Gent shouldn't be picked till the second round.
All right, there with your silly comparison to that guy from Seattle.
Rashad Penny.
Yeah. Let's just say again, let me put this on the public record. If Ashton Genty goes to the Chargers, falls all the way down to the Chargers, I will bet you whatever you want. Ashton Genty will get 2,000 all-purpose yards for Jim Harbaugh's Chargers. I could promise you that.
He'll likely go to the
Cowboys or the Chargers. I think the Chargers are going to take your Loveland boy.
Yeah, that would sure be something. To have Will Dissly losing you a playoff game to now having Colson Loveland, Chargers would be all the way back, man. Well, again, let's just look at the draft up to this point. I don't know if there's an easy way for me to see that. This was not the order, but these are some of the players. Is there no way for me to see the roundup to this point?
I don't remember on here how to do it. I think you just scroll left.
I can't drag. I wonder if I'm zoomed in too much and I'm losing something from it. No, there's no arrow or anything like that. That's a shame.
Excuse me, man.
No
worries. I can't remember the exact draft order, but again, for the 10th pick for the Chicago Bears to round this off, Adam,
all right. Here's what we had. We had Cam Ward at 1. We had
number 2 is Mason Graham.
Mason Graham at 2. Then we had Shadir Sanders at 3. Then we had
Travis Hunter at 4.
Hunter at 4.
Will Johnson at 5.
Johnson at 5. And then Abdul Carter 6. No, that was
no.
That was Luther Burden. 6.
Yeah, 6 was Luther Burden. 7 was Abdul Carter.
Abdul Carter. 8
Mr. McDonald. McMillan to the Panthers
9
at 8.
was Scourton.
Yes.
And then here we are sitting with the eternal dilemma that will get debated over and over again. It's going to be,
I'm not taking Will Campbell over Kelvin Banks. Not in 1,000 years. I'm not doing that. Kelvin Banks, or to me, it's Walter Nolan or James Pierce or
Yeah, those three to me in this situation.
You really think that Walter Nolan is him? What would he play for the Bears? A 3-tech?
3-tech, but I don't know if we're taking him. We'd have to have him fall. So no, we need edge a lot more. So you're looking James Pierce here, or you're looking Kelvin Banks.
I don't know. I'm going to go against the grain. Like I said, I just don't see the Bears going tackle, but I also don't think that Will Campbell or Calvin Banks, either of them, will be available at 10. It's just the nature of the beast. But maybe I'm wrong, probably wrong. So you have no affinity for Mykel Williams? You think that he was maybe a bit overhyped
No,
or something?
I don't have no affinity for him. I think he's a great
Player, I have him somewhere in the 15 to 20 range. I do think James Pierce is better. Mykel Williams has some good size to him for sure. He just doesn't have the same burst to me that James Pierce or Princely. I'm looking at that burst off the line.
Sure.
And I think he'll be fine.
My real sample size with Mykel Williams was he had this crazy game against Alabama, I think. Didn't he have like 3 sacks and a half against Alabama?
He had 3 sacks all year. He didn't have a sack against Alabama this year. No, he doesn't generate enough pressure. He's a really good run defender as well, though. He's got good size, though. When you watch him on tape, he's the guy that's going to pop out at the combine. He's going to have better measurables. He's quick. He's 6'5". He's 270 pounds, so he's a bigger defensive end. Where your James Pierce, I believe, is 250, maybe even smaller than that. But James Pierce really, I mean, I have him right behind Abdul Carter. I really like James Pierce a lot.
From my sample size, I love what Abdul Carter is doing, so I'm going to trust you if you think that James Pierce is in that stratosphere. That would be a good pickup for the Bears. Last caveat to this before we make the pick then. Head coach right now with the Bears having the 10th overall pick, the head coach of the Chicago Bears is Ben Johnson. Would that sway you at all towards Ashton Jeanty whatsoever?
No, not at all.
Not at all?
There's too many loaded running backs in this class to overdraft and take one in the first round that has just as good a possibility.
Did you have Jahmyr Gibbs going to the Lions with their draft pick when he was drafted?
No, but they're in a way different position we are with their trenches being set. Their offensive line, their defensive line has been way better than ours for years. If the Bears had a stacked offensive line, a stacked defensive line, then you can entertain stuff like taking a running back. But I would still take Omarion Hampton over Ashton Jeanty any day in this draft, 100%.
Understood. Well, hey, the chat likes it. They're liking Pierce. I really don't think you can go wrong. I think my homework is going to be to watch some James Pierce film because I haven't seen too much of it, but that definitely is something that I think that he could end up being a good player if you're telling me he's in the same stratosphere as Abdul Carter.
I don't know if anybody's in Abdul Carter's stratosphere, but he's a good player to watch. He'll be fun.
Any sort of close to it. I mean, Abdul Carter's far and away the best edge rusher in my opinion, just from what I've seen. But is there a way that I can not auto draft this? I just wanted to get like what the rest of the round would look like. It's because I selected all the teams, so I don't know if there's a way that I can kind of round it out real quick though.
Then no.
Auto draft.
No, it's not going to. It's going to make you pick them all. You would see the Niners pick.
I hacked it.
Nice.
What were you going to say about the Niners?
Niners will pick a tackle though. They'll pick one of those guys.
That's what I just threw up there. Yeah, absolutely. That's definitely what they would do. How far is this draft going? Oh my god!
You got all 7 rounds.
Oh yeah. Well, I'm definitely not going to wait for all of that. So I don't know if there's a way that I can. It's a shame.
Switch it to the Bears right there. Just see what they did.
Yikes! I exited out of it. That's okay.
You yikes did. Oh
yeah,
well.
that's okay. We'll have to do some more, I guess, educated and more honed in mock drafts again. I like when the draft season starts to get closer to the draft date. The combine can really skew things, in my opinion. I think that's where some weirdness starts to happen with people breaking the 40-yard dash record and things get pushed up that maybe they shouldn't have. But it's going to be a lot of fun. Adam, I don't want to take too much more of your time, man. Any closing thoughts as far as what you want to see from the Bears this offseason just moving forward?
Oh, that's not closing thoughts. What I want to see from the Bears. Oh man, that's a whole. I mean, I can give a whole narrative up here. Number one, we got to get the coaching thing fixed, and I think
You
that's gonna happen
almost said
with this.
quarterback. I
think-
was about to go
did.
nuts on you, but
I did. Quarterback coach cohesion is what I should say, but I really think it's Ben Johnson. I think all this other stuff is fluff to buy time. Hopefully, the Lions lose today. They're down 10 now. We'll start
yeah,
to see
with
this
one
get
quarter
resolved
to
more
go,
quickly.
man, that dream is a
Then we can
reality.
then we can see Robert Saleh get brought in as the defensive coordinator. And you know the other perk of that?
Please.
The other perk of that is the Rooney Rule. We would then have someone hire him away a couple years from now, and we'd get 2 more third rounders. Just saying.
Play
fun.
the system. I love it.
Play the system. That's what the Niners have been doing for years. Then we can get our defensive coordinator set, and then free agency. March 13th is circled on my calendar. 2 months from now. Like, I'm really eager to get to free agency and see what happens. But no, we got to – everyone that's been talking about the Bears this year are right. We got to focus on the trenches, and it's both sides. I think a lot of people overlooked how bad the defensive line was until now. I think they're starting to realize how terrible it was. I think if people really did look into Andrew Billings and how absolutely god-awful he was, they would realize that we have just been playing with scraps. We're playing with backup players and hyping them up. We've got to be done with developmental guys. Like taking this Packers, I don't remember his name right now, this Packers defensive tackle that came in and looked like an all-pro for the first game he played with us because we're so bad.
And he was a bit undisciplined, but I hear what you're saying.
We have third stringers playing second string and second stringers playing first string, and we act like we're going to be the best in the league. We've got to start focusing on it. And Atmos, I see you there. Think it's smart to trade back when nothing great is. I don't think Poles will. We saw it with Darnell Wright. He'll overdraft someone to get a guy that he wants, and I think he would draft a guy that would be at 15 and 20 at 10 rather than trade back and miss his guy. So I don't think we're trading back. It's my desire. Yeah, I would love to see us pick up another second rounder, another third rounder this year. I think it would be absolutely ideal. I just don't think Poles will do that. I would love to be surprised. I went live for the draft last year. I'll do it again this year, and I would love to be shocked on camera as Poles trades back. I would absolutely love it. It would be ideal. But I think just focusing on the trenches. Free agency March 13th, and away we go. This is going to be fun. And hopefully we can finally turn it into the results of playing right now in the playoffs like all these guys are. Oh, look at this trick play.
Adam, I have breaking news for you. Mikey Sainristil is a national champion, Adam.
There's a flag on the play. There's a flag on the play.
Boo. You're taking my happiness away. Boo.
But
Why are we having Jameson
goofy.
Williams? Why
Yeah,
are we having
because
Jameson Williams throw a football? Is Jerry Goof that bad?
Ben Johnson's that bad of an offensive coordinator that he can't scheme things up properly.
Would be very funny if Ben Johnson goes to the Raiders and the Raiders are again last in the division because they've got awful play calling.
You
Adam,
asked me for closing thoughts. I apologize. I appreciate you having me on, Karl. Like, it's always fun to yuck it up with you. We'll do it a lot more. We've talked a lot. We have fun with each other. So I do appreciate you. Those who are tuning in from my channel onto here, if you haven't seen Karl's channel, Thigh and Smite, look at it. He's got some really good stuff, and he's easy to talk to and listen to with his Bears thoughts. So appreciate you guys checking him out too.
And I appreciate your time, Adam. To that extent, if for some reason you guys from my channel, from the Bears Country podcast, if you don't know who this guy to my left is, Adam Mason, give him a watch. Very insightful content, very well thought out. Definitely check out his channel if you haven't already subscribed. Adam, really, really appreciate it. And like I said, until next time, guys, bear down.
Bear down. Bear down. The Bears.
Duh.
Go Bears.
Bears.